He has so many qualifications that it's extremely difficult to even start describing what he does.
Hello.
He has more than one affiliations. He's an entrepreneur. He has lived in Tokyo.
Yes.
He's a digital intelligence analyst.
Yeah, that's marketing, but yes.
Paul graduated from the Graduate Institute of International Studies in Geneva with a master's in international affairs. Very counterintuitive for an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And you then moved to Japan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, a little bit later, but yes, correct.
Yeah. Actually, you should go ahead and say a few words first about yourself. But
yeah, because it's just, yeah, so I had a startup in 1999. So we're doing mobile content. So it makes it sound as if I was a pioneer, which is bullshit because, you know, in 1999 no one was having phone, no one was having data on their phone, and the phones were in black and white. So I remember the big thing was, do you remember, guys, the Nokia communicator? We opened like this. So there was one trailer for Mission Impossible on it, so I was running it all the time. I was so happy to have a trailer for a movie on a phone. So that was the big thing for us. We worked with Nokia, we worked with MTV, Yahoo, a few companies, and then everything collapsed. You remember, if any one of you was there back then, you remember that it collapsed. So I'm also Greek, Milou Kalinika. But to be honest, I do not feel comfortable enough to do that in Greek, so please apologize for that. My mother was from Finland. I was born in Geneva. I lived in Tokyo. I lived in Manila in the Philippines. I lived in Cyprus, in Les Maisons. And now I live in London, in the UK. So I've got a bit of going all around the place. What I do now is basically, I always have a hard time, so this is why digital intelligence makes it sound nice, it's marketing. But I work with big corporations, for instance, Unilever, IBM, SAB Miller. I also work with Tumblr, for instance, and other big startups, let's call them that way. So I do research for them, and I do research on innovation strategy. And obviously, it has to do a lot with digital, and obviously, it does a lot with startups. But maybe before I go on, I just want to know a little bit about you guys. Are you involved? Is any one of you involved in a startup? Yes, you raise your hands. Okay, yeah, okay. Who works in a bigger type of company? So let's say more than 200 people. All in information technology, I guess? And any one of you works in agencies or more the marketing side, even though you do information technology? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's pretty big. So part of what I do is basically connecting the startup, because that's where a lot of innovation comes from, with these big companies that are looking for innovation, because they don't want to be Kodak, basically. Kodak was, you know the story, I'm not going to go through it, but Kodak was so big, and one day, just poof, the market disappeared, and they just disappeared. Or they don't want to be maybe Nokia. We don't know what's going to happen with Nokia, because they kind of lost the plot when it came to smartphones. So first of all, there was a lot of fun today on Twitter about me being a future teller. Actually, future teller was just a joke. When Dimitris asked me to put a name, a title, I said, okay, put me future teller, just to have fun. And then suddenly everybody thought I was telling the future. If you know Steve Jobs, and I'm sure you know, he said in one of these speeches, he says, you cannot connect the dot forward. That's exactly true. You cannot connect the dot forwards. You cannot know what's going to happen in the future. So I'm not going to tell you the future. But there are some trends and insights. You can still see what's happening now that will impact businesses in the future. I'm just going to take an example to show you. A lot of people believe that digital, we call that a revolution, that digital is changing everything. Well, to a point. So for instance, last year there was a lot of talk about the Arab Spring, all the revolutions that happened in the Middle East. The change in the government and everything. And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's a Twitter revolution. It's a Facebook revolution. Well, it started with that. It started with bread. The price of wheat went up. And this is what triggered revolution. It was not triggered by Twitter. It was not triggered by Facebook. Just to say that if you actually pay attention to these kinds of trends, hard trends, like the price of some commodities, you'll be able to spot the future. This is obviously not what I'm going to go through. We live in a very, and you know that, I know I'm in Greece, and I've seen what's happening. I don't come often enough, even though I've got an apartment here in Athens. I say jobs fail. Basically, the There's more jobs that are being destructed than jobs that are being created, and I believe this is something that will happen. I come from Switzerland, for instance. I believe that the banking industry, all the people are being fired now. So UBS just fired 10,000 people. I mean, they haven't fired them all yet, but just fired 10,000 people 2-3 weeks ago. They will never, these type of jobs in private banking will never be recreated. And I believe this is a trend that will happen more and more. More industries will go through such an event. I don't want to be too gloomy, but this is something, and you'll see later why it matters. Same thing with the euro. Okay, I'm not going to go into politics tonight, especially because I'm in Greece, and I see there's a nice flag there, so I don't know how much the EU is actually involved here. And I'm actually consulting for the EU, so I'm going to shut up a bit. But there will be also, for me, there will be troubles ahead for the euro. So meaning these big projects have failings. I'm not saying that they're going to fail, but they have failings going on. China is the same. It's when everybody says it's the next frontier. China, I'm not saying it will crumble. China is a country, everybody looks to China because it's our factory. The reason that we can have such cheap items, I mean, I know the iPhone is not cheap, but I mean, you can have this and it becomes commoditized is because they come from China. Because there were like millions and millions and millions and millions of new workers coming into the industry that lowered the price. This is not going to continue the same way. So basic prices will go up. Another issue. IPO, I just mentioned the IPO. Everybody talked about the Facebook IPO. We're not sure where it's going either. Will access to capital be being fostered by IPOs or not in the future? I don't actually believe so. And basically, we're failing on the models. So again, you don't want to be Kodak. You're Kodak, you forgot. You didn't see it coming. Your Nokia didn't see it coming, although they still have a shot, maybe. And you're failing. So the models are basically cycling much faster than they used to. What I believe, if you ask me, and this is not a prediction, but what I believe, we will live, that's why I took a photo of Japan. What I believe is that Europe, maybe the US, will go into a period of stagnation. There won't be a recession that in the next 15 years a big catastrophe will happen. What will happen is what happened in Japan in the past 15 years, it will be flat. So there will be no massive growth, but neither like a complete depression. I think it will be kind of flat. It will be high and lows. I know Greece is a bit special, so I apologize for saying that there's a stagnation where Greece is actually dumping right now. But I think on the midterm, it will be a stagnation. In the middle of that, a lot of money goes into startups. That was in another talk I gave. I used that because there were startups and they loved the startup prize. It was when Batman was released, you know, the Dark Knight Rises, so the startup pricing. A lot of money is actually put. You hear all these stories about all the money that's being put in early stage startups and startups, especially in the US, a little bit less in Europe. We can talk about it maybe later in the Q&A because I don't want to go into funding right now. But this is, you know, when the rest of the economy has an outlook that is not that good, the narrative we put in our minds is that technology is where the money is going to be made. This is why all these guys are trying. And this is maybe one bright light for the future. But is it a revolution? So if I ask you, would you actually choose between running water or your phone? What would you choose? Running water, most probably. I know you love your phone. But if you have to cut water or electricity, you still choose water and electricity over your phone. Meaning that the revolution we're happening is a revolution, but it's not the exact same type of revolution that was the infrastructure revolution we went through in the past 100 years. It's a revolution of efficiency. Basically, we're playing at the margins. We're doing exactly what we already are doing. I mean, all these startups you've seen coming on, all these innovation, is innovation about something that's already existing, just that it plays on the margins. It makes it more efficient, quicker, cheaper, commoditized. This is why I call that a game of inches, or the efficiency revolution. Basically, where the money is going to be made is not to revolutionize and reinvent completely an industry, is to find the efficiencies at the margins of every industry. This is why. For instance, even with something like Facebook, Facebook just basically played on the fact that we want to talk to people. You were already texting, and I know in Greece you love texting, you're already texting a lot before Facebook existed. Just Facebook allowed you to have another way to do group texting through data. So they just played on efficiencies. It doesn't mean that it was a full-blown revolution. I'm going to go through 3 themes today. For nomadism. I know it feels a bit out there, but nomadism basically is the fact that we all move around way more than we used to. Can you all raise your hands? Everybody, please just raise your hands. Thank you. Okay, you answer my question, who has a smartphone? So this is this is the theme of nomadism, mobility. So this is a sentence I'm using a lot. Mobile is eating the world. It comes from software. Maybe you've heard about this one. Software is eating the world. I think actually mobile is eating the world. I know it sounds, again, I had this startup in '99, and there's this big conference called the Mobile World Congress, or GSM World, which happens every February in Barcelona. And it's a mobile congress with all the telecom companies come and they display their new technologies, et cetera, all the providers. And every year we would hear, this is the year of mobile. 99, 2000, 2001, et cetera. It was the year of mobile. Suddenly, we don't have to say it anymore. We can all kind of know it's the year of mobile. We all kind of know we're there already. The thing is, you might not realize how much it is. So I think, and that's not from me, that's from a friend of mine called Don Dodge, who actually works at Google in California, who said one day, and it stuck with me, it's a platform change, it's a platform shift. We had mainframe computers first in the 70s, then PCs, there was another infrastructure revolution, then the web, and then now we're going to mobile. The thing is, it's going so fast. In 1999, there were 120 million PCs on the market. Now next year we'll be probably at 10 billion phones on the market. So we're talking about the speed that is completely different than the speed you used to have in the previous platform shifts. The adoption of mobile phones goes 20 times faster than was the adoption of PCs, whether it's desktop or laptops, and 3 times faster the adoption of the internet. So it goes really, really fast. And I know that some people, and I know some countries, they tell me, yeah, but still data sucks in a country, the coverage sucks, the carriers suck. That's great, it's just tactics. In the end of the day, the adoption of mobile is so fast that by the time you finish thinking, everybody will actually use mobile instead of a computer. And I'll come to that later. There are 1 billion smartphones, because I said 10 billion phones, if you were paying attention and not smartphones. 1 billion, 1 billion 5 smartphones, 200 million tablets, and it's growing really, really fast. I believe that this one, basically, will be your computer. We call it a phone because we like to call it a phone in our minds because, we've been having a phone for so long, so it's nice to call it a phone. It's not a phone anymore. This thing is actually, and you know that, this thing is actually more powerful than the PC you had 5 years ago, which, by the way, PC you had 5 years ago was actually less powerful than the PC you had at work. Usually the PC you had or the Mac you had at work was more powerful. Now, most probably the PC or the Mac you have at home is more powerful than the one you have at work, and this is even more powerful. And this in a few years, and I'm not talking in 10, in a few years, this will be the computer. You'll arrive at the office, you'll drop it down on the table, and you'll have the screen automatically will be your screen, and you have a keyboard if you like to have a keyboard. And then you'll grab it back at home, and that will display on your TV or whatever type of monitor you want. And this is something that is actually already being tested. That will happen very, very fast. The first iPhone that changed everything was 2007, but I would say 2008 with the iPhone 3G was actually the shift. It's only 5 years. The adoption is really, 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 really fast. So if you think about a startup, if you work in a startup, this is the biggest opportunity. People are saying mobile first. Do you design in terms of design or in terms of thinking? I think it's right for me. It doesn't matter if it's first or not first, but mobile. All the big companies I'm working with, the ones I mentioned before, when I talk to innovation right now, the only thing they're completely scared about is this. The thing, this is going to be our Kodak moment. This is going to be the fact that we don't know what to do with. Everyone has a phone. It's not only about marketing and communication, because most people think, oh, people go on Facebook, communicate with us. It's more than that. It's a lifestyle change. People have, I call that augmented life. You have it all the time with you. All the time with you, you can make decisions on impulse very quickly. I have an example. It's very fun. When I was living in Tokyo, there's this part of Tokyo called Roppongi, or Roppongi, if you want to use the R as a foreigner. It's an area where there's a lot of nightclubs, a lot of shopping centers. It's not my favorite area of Tokyo, but a lot of foreigners, when they go to Tokyo the first time, that's where they end up. There also come sleazy bars at night and stuff. And there's, in the middle of that, on one of the big roads, there's a pet store. And they have like little puppies, like kittens and dogs, that are tiny, tiny, displayed on the on the window, and it's 24/7, so it's open all the time. And I was like, what the hell is it open 24/7 in such an area? Why would it be next to a nightclub having a pet store? And then it struck me one day, because I was having a party there. I got off at 4 a.m. in the morning, and then I saw a couple in front of me. And the girl was like shouting to his boyfriend, I want that kitten. She was drunk. He was drunk. They bought it. Impulse buying. Impulse buying. This is what you do. You don't think. This allows you impulse buying. You see something, you want it now, you have it. I mean, I was yesterday a bit late until 4 a.m. in the morning as well here in Athens, having fun with a friend. And we were in a club, and there was this song I wanted. So what I did, I used Shazam. Shazam told me the song I wanted. I clicked on Spotify. I had the song directly already on my phone. It took me less than 30 seconds, the whole process. It's impulse. And this changes business models, impulse. So if you do a startup, if you think about, this is the efficiency we're talking about. You think before the people want to think. Impulse buying was never possible. Before you had time to think. I saw an advert on TV. Maybe I really want it. But by the time you actually think about buying it, maybe a week has passed, maybe even like a few hours. And by that time, the adrenaline rush of having the impulse belief stops, or actually dwindles. And then you don't buy it. That changes the model. Segmented life. The lifestyle change. A lot of people, this is really true about Greece. I was talking that today during an interview with a newspaper. Greece has, because we're in Greece, I told you before, there will jobs that will not be recreated. And Greece has sadly to go through, for me, to 5 to 10 to 15 years of stagnation. And jobs will not be recreated. What happened 100 years ago, but even 50 years ago, in such periods of time, and I'm not comparing them because it's different times, but when you have no job, no prospect, when it was really dire, what would you do? You would leave. You would immigrate to another country. This is how the US was created. You know, people left. There was famine, there was no droughts in Europe. They went to the United States. What this type of technology allows you to do, and I've done it on a constant matter, is to say, you know what? Yes, of course, there's no more jobs that I can create something here, work with another guy who lives in Singapore, and I have a developing team who is in Poland, and I have my business dev, a guy that I've just met that lives in Sao Paulo. It's possible. I know it feels a bit science fiction when I say that, but it's actually what we do, what I do, and it works. And more, especially the younger generation, will have to think that way. Because they won't be, even my generation, I'm 37, even my generation, I have to change jobs many, many times. And at the end, I chose my job. My father always looks at me, he's Greek, you know, I'm a little bit conservative, and he looks at me and says, he doesn't understand anything of what I'm doing, so the only question is AIT. The only question he asks me is, do you have enough money? Yeah, okay, yeah, so are you happy? Yes, that's it. He had the same job, okay, he was a doctor. He had the same job from the start of his life until the end. This is something we're seeing less and less. And the new generation arrives in a market when this allows it to create whatever it wants. And at the same time, they're not constrained by the fact that they live in one country or another. Again, I know internet is slower in some countries. I know there's some, I'm not saying it will solve the Greek problem, because there's much more to it. But I'm saying these type of possibilities exist and didn't exist before. So I meet actually, and I advise a lot of Greek startups, and they still all work from here. Sometimes one of the founders, because of funding, will go to the US or to the UK, but the teams are still back here. And it does make sense. Tribalism. Tribalism, just to say that, look at how I'm dressed. I know it's a bit silly maybe, but people do not want to show up in a suit anymore. Less than that, especially the new generation. They don't care about these type of rules anymore. They will have to if they're hired by a company, because sometimes they don't have a choice. I'm not saying that it's a revolution and they will all put denims and T-shirts, but they don't want to. And again, this allows them to make that choice, to say, you know what, I don't want to work for a big company. I want to be free. I will start trying to do my own thing by myself. And having these choices, our cultures are rebuilt around these types feel to belong to the same group. It's not even age anymore. Greek is one group. To be Greek, you know, I'm in Japan. I hear someone speaking Japanese. I look at him and say, "You're Greek." I recognize Greeks everywhere in the world because, you know, there's something, I don't know, it just works. I mean, there's the accent maybe or something I recognize. So that's one group. But then inside of that can be many things. And the younger generation is less defined like our fathers were, is less defined by the country than it is by what they want to do in life. So there's a new self. And then singularism. Again, nodes. I know I'm an outlier. I lived in various different countries. Luck has to do with it a lot. Okay, I could tell you I'm very smart and that's how I did all of this. Luck plays a lot. But by doing this, I had no choice but to create these nodes because I kept moving. So I kept starting one project in one country and I was living in another. So for instance, I helped TEDx Tokyo. I was one in the founding team that created TEDx Tokyo since we have TEDx here on Saturday. And by the time TEDx Tokyo launched, I lived in Manila. I still did it. And until last year, although I kept moving, I was still helping them. So less, obviously, but meaning there's these kind of bridges that are possible. And again, this is the kind of technology that helps me doing it. You couldn't have not done it before. And new people want to do it again and again and again. And this is something, again, that most of the big companies I work with are afraid. Because they say suddenly, you know what, you're in a company, and I'm not going to talk about company organization, but who works in a big company here? So you have a problem with your computer, right? It doesn't boot up in the morning. You arrive in the morning, it doesn't boot up. You're like, shit, what the hell is going on? Or your email doesn't download or something, okay? There's two ways. The first way is the official way. There's always like a help desk number you're supposed to call, depending on the size of the company, and the help desk is going to send you someone or like log in remotely and arrange a computer. So that's the way that it's supposed to be done because the rule of the company says it. Most of the cases, you just call a guy. I know that guy in this department. He will know how it works, and it works. This is what I mean by nodes. You have the nodes that are there, and you have the nodes you create yourself. You have, I need something, and Dimitris might know that. I will call him. Maybe he can help me on that. Maybe not, but you create these nodes by yourself. And we do that already. This is why I'm saying when people say it's a revolution, yes and no. We have the ability to do stuff we're not able before because the tools, the technological tools, and basically if you want to do a startup, you have to play with these tools. This is, if you make life easier for people to do this, this is where you're going to make money. These are the tools that are going to make money. Because, of course, one of the incentives of working and doing a startup is not only changing the world, it's also making money. And the biggest challenge for me, and there's two things. I want to say first one thing before I go there. You know how we always say there's these $1 billion startups? You know, the last one was Instagram that was bought out by Facebook. Actually, sorry? Merak, yeah. In the consumer space, because the consumer space is always sexy. We know Facebook, we know Instagram, because it's the stuff that we use on a constant basis, even for our entertainment. So these type of $1 billion companies, there will be, for me, less than 10 in the future. In the enterprise space, so stuff that we don't really see that matter as well, but we don't see the end product, at least 200. There's what the money will be made nowadays. So that's, again, if you're a startup, this is something you could find. Though, and that's the one thing that we all have to struggle with. When I do workshops with big companies, start with an exercise and ask the people of various backgrounds, marketing, old ages, young, SVPs are older. What is your bigger fear when digital? And I say whatever. It can be private, it can be business. What is your biggest fear? 70%, and usually the ones who have kids, you know what they tell me? They say, oh, I don't know what my kids are doing online. They don't know because they don't understand what their kids are. They're afraid, though. They might find bad kind of relationships, et cetera, et cetera. They just don't know. This is, and we have to struggle with that as well. I mean, I don't care personally if I have pictures of me drunk in clubs. I don't care. And I have. If you look at my Facebook, you'll find them. But some people do. And the problem is that all these lives are together. Your business life and your personal life, your family life are intertwined all the time, especially in a country like Greece. So Greece is called, this is one I'm going to talk a bit in TEDx, in my talk at TEDx, it's called a high context culture. High context cultures are cultures that you need, a lot is unsaid, a lot is physical, this kind of a feeling of communion. This exists in Greece. It doesn't exist in the UK. It's a low context culture. In the UK, it's very, doesn't mean that there's no warmth. It means it's a different type of relationship. So it's even worse for Greece or for high context culture countries to all these lives being together, because how do you separate them? You maybe don't want that your boss sees stuff that you do privately. It's all, so the biggest challenge for me is efficiency. So the company that will be able, and there are lots of them are trying, I'm seeing them, the company will able to find a way to separate your lives, because we know how to separate our lives when we speak to someone. I'm here speaking with you. Okay, I'm speaking to you now. I hope you speak back. But we know by instinct in which category we are. If it's friendly, not friendly, business, not business, we know. These tools, they don't know. We have to tell them, and we don't. We just go, you know what, I'm just going to post everything on Facebook, whatever. The company is going to be able to understand it separate, find, either it's an algorithm or it's a product. There are many tries now that's going to be able to find this way to separate our identities online while still making it unique. This company will be not a 1 billion, but a $100 billion company. So the opportunity is for guys like you, whether you're in a startup or even if you're in a big corporation, is that, and I'm sure I don't know exactly the program that you have here in this institute, but by learning these type by learning information technology and by mixing it with management, you understand these type of trends. You have the opportunity to be faster. You have the opportunity to actually save your company from being a Kodak, or to go by yourself and create a company that will be non-Kodak at some point, or startup. It doesn't have to be Facebook. I know Facebook is really, it's always the example, people love it. But you can do it because you know, because you can be fast, you can be really fast. That's the thing. Big companies, the reason they fail is just because they're slow. Because by the time they realize that something has changed, it's already done. Because you have to discuss. This is something that you can allow not to happen. And agile. Just to give you an example, because this is one, and I'm going to finish on this and let you talk a little bit. 1 million users. The 1 million users is the number everybody wants to have when they create a service. It took 9 years for AOL to reach 1 million users. It took 9 months for Facebook to reach 1 million users. And it took 9 days for Draw Something, which is a game on the iPhone, to reach 1 million users. It's going really, really fast. And when I hear companies, startups, in Greece telling me, Paul, it's so complicated. We're in Athens, and nobody, I'm saying, bullshit. I've known companies, Skype doesn't come from the US. I've known companies, Angry Birds doesn't come from the US. They come, one is from Estonia, the other is from Finland. There's another company now in Sweden that does the new Zynga, apparently. It doesn't matter where you are. You can, whatever, if you find something, users will find you. I know it sounds easy, and we can talk more now if you want in the Q&A, but this is, you don't realize how much clout you can have, and even from Greece. So you don't have to go to the Silicon Valley. You can do it from here. I spoke already too much. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Now I want to hear you a little bit, because I spoke too much. So either if you want to have a question or even you want to criticize, I love critics actually. So just go ahead. You can do it in Greek. I'll try to answer, but I'll answer in English. You can shout. I think we're not that many. Is that okay with the camera guy? Yes.
You see a parallel between what has happened in Japan, stagnation, and some type of similar situation for the future in Europe.
Yep. Oh, yeah, I do agree. No, I do agree. I don't want to go into too much economical analysis. It's true that the causes were different, but I think the type of crisis will be similar. Meaning it's, if you go to Japan, it feels like it, I was in the US when 98, I went to the US when that crisis happened. And you can feel it. There's and I can feel it honestly. Last time I came to Greece was January, and the previous time was maybe 8 months before. I can feel the deterioration. I can feel. I can see that shops are closed. I can see that there's less people in clubs, whatever. No, but you can feel that. There's something you can feel. In Japan, you can feel it. You cannot really feel it. There's no this kind of massive downturn, everything disappears. So this is true. Greece is going through a massive downturn right now. That's true. This is why I cannot compare it to Japan. But on the midterm, I believe that it will go in a period of, it will stay stable. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's going to stay stable. Because it will take 10 to 15 years to reignite the economy. Which it means the good thing is that there's no complete catastrophe. The bad thing is obviously that you will need to find other type of resources to make it happen. Japan has the same issue. If you look at what happens to Sony, to all these companies, they have the same struggle like Kodak right now. They're still doing, they didn't see the iPhone arriving, and then everybody takes a picture with a phone. They don't take a picture with a compact camera anymore. They have to reinvent themselves as well. But in terms of the impact to the overall economy, it's a stagnation. But it's true it's not exactly the same thing. I completely agree with you. I think it's just a good way to express what's going to happen. Yes?
You want to talk a bit more about the jobs issue? I mean, you're saying there's going to be stagnation, there's not going to be any more jobs in Greece, but there is going to be a global pool of labor there where people can actually work. This global pool of labor where nomads will work and drivers will work and the nodes will happen. Is this pool going to grow due to the explosion of mobile?
I think the pool will grow because at one point there's one thing that happened is that one of the reasons that we have less jobs, and again, I'm not saying that there will be no more new jobs. I'm just saying that the growth of jobs, it will be less. There's automation, lots of stuff that people can do are done now via computers. You don't need people anymore. There's a lot of other factors. And there's also the fact that suddenly we're a big world. When you add like 1.5 billion Chinese and 1.5 billion Indians into the job market because they can do stuff, okay, we can say they're not exactly the same, but they're learning quickly, very, very quickly. I go to China, and when you go to China now, in the big cities, everybody speaks English perfectly. It goes very fast. And companies have the choice to go to China, etc., anywhere they go. This is why we're not like Europe and the US kind of isolated and say, oh, you know what, we are going to do the high net worth job will be here and the factories will be. This doesn't exist anymore. Especially also because China, I'm talking about China, but other countries matter as well, but China is so big. People, they're getting richer. They don't want to work at factory jobs again. At some point, this pool of people will also disappear, which means the price will go up because all these things, or automated. So it still remains that we're a lot of people, and some of us, might not find a job, or we might find, plus added to the fact that we might not find it very appealing to work for a big company, we'll start to, and I see that, you can use, stupid things like TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit, I know it's a stupid example. TaskRabbit is a website. Does anyone know what TaskRabbit is? Yeah. So basically, you tell me if I'm wrong. TaskRabbit, you just say, okay, it could be anything. I don't want to lose time going to my dry cleaner every week, okay? So I'm going online and I say, okay, I'll pay for this job, I don't know, let's talk in euros, 20 euros a week, whatever, for someone to actually go to my dry cleaner, pick up my dry cleaning, bring it back home and pick the new one, okay? And I can post this on TaskRabbit, somebody grabs it, there's like a kind of auction system, and somebody grabs the job and does it. Okay, this is a simple routine thing to go, but it could be anything.
That has great founders.
See which one? Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So actually one of the founders lives here in Athens.
I haven't met him, I should. So yeah, that's another thing. It's an freelancer. So basically, myself, so part of the projects I'm doing, I'm by myself. I mean, I use a network. Every time I need, for instance, I used to code. I don't code anymore. I'm a very bad programmer, and this is not my added value anymore. So what I do, I outsource everything. I find team usually in Eastern Europe, and they would code everything I do on spec. Meaning design the same thing. You want to design a logo, for instance, and meaning these are the new type of jobs that did exist, but at small scale. The fact that these websites allow people to say, oh, you know what? I don't want to, and I meet so many. Okay, especially right now, especially in the design / programmers. These are the two key ones. But I want to, they don't want to work. I've met so many, for instance, in Japan. They're just there. They say, you know what? I don't want to work for a company. But they're doing lots of money by just like doing, I don't know, lines of codes for 1 month for one client. From, I don't know, a big automaker in, that's an example I know. I cannot name the automaker, but a big automaker in Germany. The guy did all by himself for 2 months a program. He got lots, really well paid. And he said, you know what, I'm going to take three months of vacation. He's an outlier. The guy is a freaking genius, okay, but meaning it's possible. I'm not saying that everybody will want to do it. I'm saying this is a career path option that didn't exist before. Yeah. Including Greece. I meet a lot of startups that have the founders abroad and still have developing teams here, for instance.
What do you think is the main problem of the Greek entrepreneurs? I mean, you have met a lot, so I have seen some patterns like, not creating a good network or not setting the best goals.
Too shy. Yeah. Greeks are not shy when they're amongst Greeks. They're very shy. It's not only Greeks, to be honest, but very shy when it comes to connecting with people that aren't Greeks. I see the way they interact with, especially, again, high context culture versus low context. A high context person, when he's in a low context culture, and that's where the money is, US, UK, that's why you immediately want to know another Greek, because you say, okay, can you introduce me to that guy? Which is, everybody does that, but it's more, they need more people to accompany them and say, okay, meet that guy. They are more or less, when they're amongst Greek, they're very good. When they're not that many. And also, this is not something that the Greek only do, but a lot of, they think they're too modest. We're not in the Silicon Valley and we're not worth it. And I see that everywhere. This is not Greek. Just like, meaning, until the day I moved to the Silicon Valley, I'm second class. So I don't really dare talking about what I do. I mean, you add that to shyness, which is stupid. I've seen really, and you mentioned one, but great stuff being done here. To be honest, the third thing that's structural, there's nothing to do with Greece, is the funding issue in Greece. But funding issue is not funding per se. The problem is the regulations for investment, especially from abroad. I would not invest in Greece. It's too complicated. It's not even about visibility on the market. It's not even about, is the market going to be stable or not? It's just going to be too complicated. There's too much red tape. And then the other thing is, and I know it's not very popular ways to say that, is labor laws. In order to hire easily, you need to be able to fire someone easily. In Switzerland, I know Switzerland is not a very entrepreneurial market, but Switzerland, you can fire anyone without any cause in a month. So of course, the market keeps very liquid. The unemployment rate in Switzerland is 2.4. So it helps as well. It doesn't solve everything, but it helps. Funding is a problem. I think government funding is, well, it's government funding. And it's not Greece, it could be anywhere. I'm not a big fan of government funding. I think Greece should make it clear rules, easy rules to understand for private investors to come in. And to be honest, I've met a lot in the US, Greeks that have made a lot of money. They say, Paul, I want to invest in Greece, what do you think? And no. They don't want to, not because they have this kind of, I love my country, I want to give back, but I don't want to do it in other current circumstances because I'm gonna have too many problems with the government. I mean, with the regulation, with the bureaucracy, with the red tape. So this is structural. This has nothing to do with Greeks per se. It has to do with the structure that is obviously a bit slow to change. Yeah, but exactly what I said, shy. Yeah, that's the thing. No, but I mean shyness. I meant by that. I mean like being too modest about yourself. I mean people need boosters. But everybody, myself included, you need to have someone tell you, what you do is actually fucking great. And to have someone believe in yourself. We all do that, whether it's a private life, whether it's everything, family. We need to have that. If nobody tells us that, then we don't do it. Because we need to believe. There are days where we're like, oh shit, I don't want to do it anymore. And somebody comes and says, come on, stop it. This is why, for instance, I work with accelerators. Accelerators are programs where a lot of startups gather together. And I'm a mentor in a few. I'm going next week to Rio to do one. Because, not that I don't have any truth to that, but if you add me plus, 100 others, and people are much smarter than I am, then a small startup will see, I can see someone new every day that will give me not only advice, but maybe a booster about, so the idea I'm doing is actually validated by someone. So I don't know the exact, you know best than me, the exact state of accelerators in Greece, but especially the quality of the mentors. And they have to be international. Not because Greeks are not good, but because, as you say, you want role models.
The first thing, if you go by access nationality,
Yeah, but
founded public companies and so on. So
how did you find them?
I was a nomad.
Sorry?
I was a nomad.
Yeah, that's the thing. You still need an ecosystem because you need, not everybody starts by being a nomad. The first time you start, because life, you're just there for some reason, could be Greece, could be anywhere, I think you need to have people to be inspired by. So I think Greeks abroad are actually really ready. I meet, there's so many projects I've been asked to participate in about Greece. They're really ready to help. I think it needs to have, and I think what's the name? Human Grid. These are projects like that also, you know what? People do not know what's happening in Greece. First of all, there's a language. That's one thing. Even if you're Greek abroad, it will still be nice to have some news in English. I have so many people who have no clue about what's going on. It's opaque. We don't really see. So even myself, to be totally honest. And the other thing is, if a Greek company is successful abroad, usually you don't put forward the Greekness, which is okay, but it should be sometimes spoken about a little bit more because that would encourage other people to try. Again, I don't have the perfect recipe for that. I think the thing is, I agree partially with you the mentality, but you cannot change that. You cannot change the mentality of a culture. The culture, cultures in Japan, for instance, I've been living in Japan. Japan has a very specific culture. It's non-entrepreneurial. It's very hard to find entrepreneurs there because by design, you're supposed to work in a big corporation. To still be able to do it, it will never change. The country will not become entrepreneurial. So Greece will not change. What you should do is adapt to what you have to make it work. And that works much better than actually trying to say, oh, you know what, in 10 years we'll be totally different. Bullshit. It's not going to happen. Same thing. This is why, okay, I'm recorded, but whatever. This is why, you know what, I'm Swiss. I'm both Swiss and Greek. So I was born in a country, so basically I always joke, at night I'm Greek, I go partying until 5 a.m. in the morning, and in the morning I'm Swiss. I wake up at 6. And every morning I wake up at 6, whatever happens, because I work. But this is also the misunderstanding. I can see it because I have it in me, because I have all the time both of the sides. It's a misunderstanding in Europe, partially. Because you cannot make, whether it's Italy, Spain, Portugal, or Greece, you cannot make Germany. You have to work around, and there's ways of doing it. You have to work around it instead of applicating one model. But this is a discussion for beers later, because honestly, we can go on for hours. Dimitri?
Paul, you're quite regular in conferences, especially in Europe, right? So
Well,
how
yeah.
often you see Greek startups participating in startup competition around Europe?
I see them more. So the question was, how many startups do I see participating in startup competitions and conferences in Europe? I see them more, but they have the same issue again. Sometimes I have to push them. I have to say, you know what, there's this competition, just go and apply.
We met in Dublin.
We met at Dublin Web Summit, which is a conference, yeah.
How many startups were there?
Greek?
No.
Oh,
In total, I think
I don't know. Officially, like 200, I think. But then there was more, but
Greek startup represented.
there was one.
One.
A Bed Cafe.
Bed Cafe.
Bed Cafe was represented.
Just one Greek startup representing the whole ecosystem. Because that's the way we see it. If you have Greek startup participating in the conference,
It's a validation. It's part of the thing. It's nice to see. It's not for me. Of course, I like it when I see. Actually, Bet Cafe, he had a Greek flag. I said, come on, put it on your stand so everybody sees we're Greece, He even brought Ouzo with him. That was, fun. But that's how you make a difference. I'm not saying, I know it's cliche and stereotypes. But it works. You know what? It works. There's always a fine line between perceptions and stereotypes. Stereotypes can be very negative, like everybody, okay, I'm Swiss, everybody believes I'm filthy rich and I'm hiding all my money. Right, great, thank you. This is, and then there's a perception and stereotypes, but play with it. It's okay, play with it. The thing is, I think Greeks do not play with it enough. They play amongst yourself, you do. When I read the Greek newspapers, there's a lot of, but not outside. It's okay. I've seen so many companies from, startups from Asia, they play with that. It's part of life, it's okay. And I agree with you, there should be more. But again, it needs, that's not only Greece. Every country needs one startup that really made it big for the others to follow. That helps. When you have a Skype being so successful, so suddenly the ecosystem in Estonia is freaking mind-blowing. It's huge. Go ahead.
We call it the Gallis example because of the victory we had back in '87.
Yep.
Right, we had a whole generation of basketball players, right? So
Yeah.
if we have someone who can make it stand and actually, create a successful case study for everyone.
But that's why it doesn't even matter. Sorry.
It's about perception.
But that's why even the ones that are going public, even if they're not in Greece anymore, I don't care. They should, even locally, they should play out the Greek card because that will inspire others. The thing is, we don't read it. We don't know. There's a lot of Greek. Sorry. Yeah, but who knows about Velti? Is it a Yeah, no, you here. Okay, well, I'm in Athens, so I guess that people know about Velti. But outside.
There's even a better example. There was a company called Atmen in Patras. So the founder was Greek, and this guy designed the first Wi-Fi chips that Hewlett Packard and Boston bought. Nobody knows.
Yep. Well, it happens a lot. I'm not saying I understand. I understand that it's as a founder, you maybe not wanting to show off and say, but it would help. You had a
The following question, not question, maybe even a matter of perception of the Greek society, but also of the potential, let's say, investors. In the US or in other countries, you are not, let's say, once you may try and fail.
Yeah.
And then you can still have access to money or whatever.
I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
More
Yeah.
difficult situation and so on. But in Greece, failure is a no-no. Okay, you cannot fail.
Yeah.
So also they do not invest in you because they believe you'll fail. So this concept of you have to try at least once, twice. Okay, there are others who get right the first time, but you may try a couple of times and create innovative things before you get it right for the beginning.
Yeah, I totally agree. First of all, there was an article in The Economist maybe 2 months ago. There was a ranking of countries in Europe about failing. Not only startups, but when you fail, how long until you go out of bankruptcy? So you fail, you have to sell the assets, you have to reimburse whoever, maybe the labor laws, the charges for employees and everything. Greece was actually not the worst offender. There's countries that are worse in Europe. But it's true that this is why, again, the mentality will not change. If you fail, people will still look at you and say, oh, you failed. But changing the structure, so the changing structure is hard. This is the only case where I think government money can help. Because it's hard. You know what? Everybody, if you listen online or if you've seen some startup or entrepreneurs coming in Greece, they tell you, fail fast, fail often, fail again, okay? And it's by failing you're gonna learn. Great. The reality is, ask them, you're an investor, would you invest in a guy who failed 3 times? And most of the time it will be a no. So even in the US, when supposedly that's the mentality, it's not that easy. But at least access to credit, access to venture capital should be there. Meaning that, and this is the only time when I think as a stopgap, because if you go to any bank here, of course, you fail once, you're doomed. You'll never get credit anytime soon. So this is a way, this is maybe the only way I would say government money could be, whether it's EU money, whatever, I don't care, could actually help to say, okay, we set up a fund, okay, the second time you can grab it from here, or something like that. But the mentality, will not. I don't think it will change. People will still be, oh yeah, it can change in 100 years. Okay, great, but if it's not what we're interested in, I mean, yeah, for future generations, but it won't. So.
Paul, how familiar are you with the Greek higher education system, with universities in Greece?
A bit, not completely, but a bit.
I'm asking you for 2 things. Because
so education system, that's his question, the Greek education system.
More precisely to hear your views on the role that higher education and research should play in an ecosystem such as you described. And also given that we are doing a very high level, mostly European funded research for the past 10 years. And we're trying to switch our mentality a little bit and be more entrepreneurial, also trying to open ourselves to the entrepreneurial community. So what's your experience with that?
I believe academics are after a lot, there's a lot of it's a McKinsey word, synergies. But there's there are a lot, actually, because there's actually, if you look around the world currently, there's all these programs. Everybody wants to have it Silicon Valley. So you'll have all the governments say, okay, now we have, I don't know, Athens Valley, and the other says Paris Valley, and you create, which why not, Why not? You create a place where supposedly innovation will kind of work. But in some places it has worked. In Switzerland, it's one of the most famous ones. Actually, if you go to both of the, they call it EPFZ, so it's the two basically polytechnicums universities. One is in Lausanne and the other is in Zurich. They've created clusters. So not only now they have usual students coming in and doing their bachelor's and master's degrees, and then on top they're starting adding space for entrepreneurs to actually work. So, to create these kind of bridges, or like you just finish your bachelor or your master's, like, oh, I have this idea, okay, here's a space, you stay. Stay with us and try to do something. And we'll also fund part of what you're doing. Like, when I say funding, and you know that, guys, especially those who are in startups, we're not back in 99. Back in 99, it was really, really, really expensive to create a startup. Now, you can start with 20,000 euros. I'm not saying that you're going to survive very long with 20,000 euros, but you can start. You can actually have a running prototype product done with for 20,000 euros. Software mostly. Hardware, of course, is a bit tougher. So by creating these clusters, you bring, not only you bring, so basically the idea of an accelerator, the idea of the incubator, but you bridge them with universities. It has actually worked. It worked also in India. There's one that actually works also quite well. Of course, it's a bit soon to say. Because everybody talks about the Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is 50 years behind it. So now it's called the Silicon Valley. It went through many denominations, but it was always a cluster that was self-constructed, but the government had a play. That's the thing. Now everybody thinks it's like only private money, but the government had a big play at the very start. So because there was a lot of government-backed projects. So this is why I still believe in that case, yes, it can be helpful, because especially, I don't know, guys that do the bachelor or master's here, then you could say, okay, maybe you define an idea while you do that. Okay, stay around, and we'll help you with some resources, whether it's like just mentorship because we know, or introduction network, because sometimes you by yourself, you have these great ideas. See, I need to talk to a guy from, I don't know, Cosmote, and you don't know anyone from Cosmote. This is why these nodes are interesting. And maybe you can go and say, oh, we're going to introduce, or we can do tours. We'll grab a group of 5, 10 students, and we'll go to meet some CIOs of companies. It can be anything. These people are, because first they feel validated if they meet these people, and then they might actually create bridges and say, okay, we have this idea, we've seen what Cosmote is doing, or I say Cosmote, it could be anyone, just the first idea because it's on the network I'm roaming with. But I'm not religious about this, so I could go another network if you prefer. But meaning, yeah, it's very valid. I think this is actually better than creating a full-blown valley something. I think using the existing, whether it could be also entirely private. I believe you're mostly private, right?
Not-for-profit private.
Not-for-profit private. So it doesn't have to involve the Greek government or bureaucracy. It could also just involve funds from private institutions that say, okay, we cooperate with you and we'll do an additional space where people can be co-working space, it can be because it's not exactly the same thing. Incubation can be accelerators, it could be a lot of things. It doesn't have to be, because when people think about accelerators, they think again, oh, Instagram, the next Instagram. No, it could be stuff that is more fundamental. Research it doesn't have to be. Actually, I'm pretty sure there's much more money to be done. And again, money is not the only driver. In biochemistry, for instance, done in clean tech, or done in doing a next Instagram. But I mean, of course, it requires much more education to do that. But I mean, I think it's a very valid. And I would also suggest that companies that are not willing to invest in Greece, or actually are afraid to, would actually, like, for both reasons, also part is marketing. All these big companies are like, oh, we want to be part of this entrepreneur startup innovation thing, and we don't know how. So you go to them and you say, okay, give us $1 million. I just, of course, a number like this. Give us $1 million, and we'll partner where you have both your names, and then you'll be part of an innovation center. And actually, I've seen that happening in some countries where these big companies, and again, they're afraid. They don't do any innovation. They want to do it. They know because they feel that there's something is going on and they don't know where it's going. This is actually why they hire me. They ask me, Paul, what is going on? What we should do? And actually, these are bridges. I don't know the exact culture of business here in Greece and which companies could, but there's a thing. Or maybe even foreign companies could. You know, in London, I know it's London, it's not Athens, yeah, but I think that's overstated. You know, Google opened the Google campus, you know, tech campus. Just when you just open it, and it's a big space that now you have accelerator programs and other inside. So it's external money came to the UK to open that. Okay, the government helped. There's a lot of other stuff, but I think this is far better than just waiting for a pure government-backed program that will create Athens Valley, which is fine for communication, but it's, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that right now, not only in Greece, but in other countries, expecting other government backing, or even, let's say, some other sort of backing in a big way, is not easily anticipated, I think, in the current environment.
No, of course not. Well, yes and yeah.
So in the past, for example, since you mentioned the US and Silicon Valley, two major parts played. One was government projects, as you said,
Yep.
and the other one was army projects.
Yeah, army. That's why I say government. For me, it was, yeah, but yeah.
Two different things.
Yeah.
So army projects. And army projects have a specific thing. They are very precise and they know what they want. They have the requirements. So you can build on it.
Yep.
Now this
Spec,
ecosystem
yeah.
where we say everything goes, let's try anything, let's go out there with 20,000, you do anything. First of all, the risk or the failure rate
Is high.
is 100 times higher.
Yeah.
Secondly, as you say, they're very small, very this, very that, but what is the effect? There's not much done.
No, that's why, of course, if you had to do such a program, you would have to find a defining theme. Why would you do it?
I see recently, and I say it although I teach these things,
Yeah.
glorification of, let's say, startupping.
I agree.
At the same time,
It's very
I
hip
see-
to be entrepreneur.
Yeah, very hip to be startupping. And at the same time, I see overall, of course, they're very successful and so very little produced at the end of the day out of this.
Yes and no, but I
A
agree.
lot of effort,
No, I agree.
a lot of staff, a lot of personal hours or lives invested in this. Very little actually comes out.
I agree, but that's at the same time I would argue. I agree with you. This is why I believe. You know what? If you have a fund, I'm not saying you. I mean, if there's a fund, and the fund wants to invest 20,000 euros, let's say a number like this, in whatever startups that comes out, I think good. Let's do it because that actually puts fuel in the engine. Yes, I agree. The failure rate is really high. Production is low. But these guys, they try once, twice, 3 times. It's better than if they're not in the system at all. I agree. Then it's true as well that the best programs I've seen are programs that have decided of a route, not going like carpet bombing and just saying whoever comes. They find, because let's say if I had to create a fund tomorrow, I kind of know exactly where I would go because it's my areas of expertise. I want to be able to talk. If you want to create a startup, I want to be able to talk with you and say, okay, no, you should do that. If you come to me and say, I'm going to do clean tech, and I've never done clean tech in my life, I look at you and say, oh yeah, I believe you, whatever, I don't know. So it's a bet. I just put money there and I hope like in a casino, it goes on red or it goes on black. So I totally agree with you. But I still think the output measure of innovation is really hard. We don't know yet. It's too early. Meaning that there's not enough history in Europe. These guys, 1 minute, okay. These guys, one more question. There's not enough history to actually know, because we're talking about the figure of an entrepreneur that is successful and actually can help Greece. For me, the real success, the real figure is not an entrepreneur that made it once, is a serial entrepreneur. If you're able to create a mentality of serial entrepreneur, this is where you know you have created an ecosystem. It's someone, I do a startup or I do whatever, a company, I succeed, either I sell it or I just say, you know what, now it's grown, I leave the baby to someone else and I start something else. If you have this, there's not many people who are able to do that because it's a hard life to do it. But if you have this in a country, then you know that the country has something going on for it. So this is why I agree with you on the output, but then again, allowing people to try is not bad either, especially compared to the alternative, which in Greece, there's not many jobs, so maybe not even alternative, I don't know.
You are not mutually exclusive to try again, but you need at some point some direction.
Yeah, okay.
Not in the sense of, okay, but I talked too much.
Yeah, there was one more question, but where? Where's the question coming from? I don't know. You point, no, yes, no. Do you want me to auction the last question, or? Yeah, go ahead. Before I said the price, it's free.
Okay, one last question. You work with big corporations.
As well, yes.
How resistant or how open they are to this changing environment?
The resistance, oh God.
If there is a pattern, which is the department that takes the lead? This comes from marketing?
Ha, that's very good. Actually, so they want to believe that it's, so first of all, there's a lot of resistance. But rather resistant because we all have the fear of the unknown. So, you know, especially companies, I would say, the more they're making money, the more it's actually, I can see that it's acute. You know, the companies that are a very good business model that just works, there's money coming in, you know, you don't want to change whenever everything goes right. You know, like, oh, there's so much profit, what the hell would we change, you know? This is Kodak then again, right? So they are resistant, but it's more fear. You know, they know that something is happening. It's not that I'm teaching them anything. They're just like, yeah, I mean, we're seeing all these shifts. We don't know where it's going. We know we have to do something about it, but we don't know what. And even when they kind of know what, they're of course afraid. And then, you know, it's inertia. Big companies, you know, by the time a decision is made, it takes a long time. Which department? That's actually interesting because so now the current trend is to hire innovation strategists or create innovation departments of foresight. Foresight is a very, very hip thing, another hip thing. So you create these groups when basically I'm going to hire 5 of you here. I could put you in a room and you brainstorm and you tell me, you know, the stuff of the future. And sometimes it works. I mean, especially if you're very consumer-oriented because you want to know, like, you know, I don't know, you're making denims or jeans, whatever you want to call them here. Okay, you want to know the fashion trends that's coming up, so you use foresight because you know that the input will be not maybe of the catwalk, but will be because of somebody has started a trend in New York or Tokyo or London. And in that sense, it works. But technology is much harder, but they're trying. Marketing, to be honest, not that much actually. Marketing, they have the obligation to, not the obligation. They felt it very early because social media came and they were like, okay, we have to do something about it, especially when you're consumer facing. So they are starting doing something about it. Doesn't mean that their innovation is coming from them either. I think at the end of the day, usually innovation comes from the most unexpected places. What I see, usually innovation comes with, usually it's a guy, or a girl, sorry, when I say a guy, it's not meant to be sexist. I'm really sorry, women, for that. But it means it could be you're in this company, and you're like, you know what, I want to change something there because I see it's not working. And you try and start, it's a seed inside. The big problem with that approach is that the day you leave, if the company hasn't picked up on the project and has giving you resources, it disappears. Usually that's what I see. They're still not really organized. It's not one way. Plus, to be very honest, we say innovation. We could spend an hour defining what is innovation. You know, innovation is like a good website. When you see a good website, a good designed website, you say it's good. You don't know really why, but you know it's good. You know, we can all agree on some websites say this is really well made. And then you don't really know why. You know, we kind of feel. The same thing with innovation. We all feel when we see something and say, this is innovative. Okay, then we have a lot of, you know, innovation is not only about phones. It can be a lot of other things that are not even technological. But it's really hard to know what is innovation, to define it, thus really hard to actually measure it. So I would say other companies, and again, I don't work with all the companies in the world. Well, I wish not. But I usually, for the moment still, I see it mostly coming from individuals. And then it's channeled into innovation strategy groups and such. But there's not a single source of... If I knew it, I would write a book. It'd be very rich, but I don't, to be honest. Or I could lie and make it be very rich either, but I'm not like that either. Sorry, I spoke too much.
Say a few words about TEDxAthens.
A sneak preview of what
Which we want to thank for having you today.
I'm not TEDxAthens, by the way. I'm not. We're
The curator of TEDxAthens.
He's only TEDxAthens where he has his phone on his neck. Yeah, so like every Japanese does. And I'm having fun with it. I'm sorry, guys. So what I'm going to talk at TEDxAthens, if only I had finished my slides, I would know. No, actually, which is true, I haven't finished my slides. I usually do them the night before. And of course, they wanted me to rehearse tomorrow, so it's going to be a bit tough, but I'll do that today. But basically, usually I talk a lot about, innovation strategy, or of course that has to deal with marketing and everything that has to deal with mobility. And I don't want to do that, to be honest, tomorrow, because it's something that TEDx is supposed to be a bit different. I could do it. I'm sure it would be nice and fun. But so I'm going to try to, and I've gave you some hints when I talked today. I'm going to try about human behavior due to culture, so the fact that you're Greek, then I'm also Swiss, then I'm also from Finland, and I lived in Japan, and all this stuff that makes it, I'm my own experiment. And that has actually a lot of impact on how people communicate as well. So why would you use the way you use a phone, for instance, or the way you design a website? I'm not going to go too much into that tomorrow, but there's ways you market differently to people that are Greeks than to people that are from the UK. We all know that, but there are theories behind it explaining why. And I went a little bit into the high context culture, this type of stuff. This I'm going to play around for 15 minutes to talk? 8 minutes? 18, yeah. I'll do 15 because if you tell me 18, I'll speak for 35. So, yeah. So I'm going to talk a bit about it. Probably not really about mobile. Well, yeah, something a bit fun about my own story.